Okay, the other thing that I wanted to make a video about is the error of multiculturalism, which I think is even more clear than these pastoral approaches to not asking too much. And also there's other pastoral approach things that I question, like creating the illusion of of uh, of increasing the role of women somehow by appointing them to commissions and things like that, which is unnecessary. All you need is the example of Mary. Point women to Mary and the great female saints. That's all you have to do. You know, I mean, you have these papering over and illusory things. Yeah, I don't think they're really profitable. But anyway, okay, so multiculturalism, where did that come from? Yeah, actually, I think originally it's coming from the devil. And how is that? What's wrong with multiculturalism? Well, here's what's wrong with it. Because the devil sows division. Unity is the enemy of the devil. And the devil thrives on division. And he started out essentially in the secular world with this. It started out in secular society with the idea of that that you don't really need to assimilate into a culture when you've immigrated into a society that has a different culture than where you came from, and that replaced before that they had this principle called e pluribus unum, out of many one, and I think that's the correct one. That was the theory and modus of operation before multiculturalism. So the devil sowed the seed of multiculturalism first in secular society. It's easier there to do, since there's nobody really there who should have the spiritual understanding to be able to refute it as a value. But anyway, so it kind of got its roots there, and then it spread into the church. That's where I criticize that, because the bishops of the church are supposed to have enough spiritual awareness to see that it's wrong and the danger of it. So how, and this was written about by Saint Pope John the 23rd in this encyclical that he wrote, Pacem in Terris. He clearly wrote that, he was writing about immigration, and that how people, while they should and could hold on to and foster within their own communities, there are certain traditions and values that were unique to them. Still, they should assimilate into the culture in which they have moved into. Okay, so how do you do this in the church? Well, so in America, there's always been large influxes of foreign-speaking people that required to have liturgies and being ministered to in their language, and that's certainly understandable, and certainly should happen, and there should be masses said in those languages, but not the core masses of the local parishes. And the other thing is this, and this is where the Vatican's guilty of this too. This goes to the Vatican too. That when there is only one Mass, which are certain occasions like Holy Thursday, where there's only going to be one Mass, that's where that Mass needs to be in the local vernacular, and the local vernacular only. Why? Why is that? Because the argument, well, I mean, there's people that don't speak the vernacular. Well, you know what? First of all, that's a straw man and a lie. Like, I know where I am, they use this argument, but everybody speaks English here. They may prefer to speak some other language, but they speak English. Okay, let's say for the rare person who really doesn't understand English, well, that's where you have translations that can be used. And with modern technology, actually they should be able to create instantaneous translations via Bluetooth to where people could have like earbuds where they could get an instantaneous translation. And that would be more reproductive of the miracle of the tongues of Pentecost, where what? The apostles spoke in their own language. And everyone understood it in their language. Okay, the apostles didn't have like, okay, 3 of you speak this language, 2 of you speak this language, 3 of you speak that language, or we'll repeat it in another language. No, that's not what happened. They spoke it one time in the local vernacular. And then everyone understood it in their own language. Well, just as like modern healings aren't exactly the same as when Jesus instantaneously healed people, his healing power comes through many different means now. But the most reproductive of that miracle of the tongues at Pentecost would be to have some other means for the people who to understand it in their own language, not to be dividing up the liturgy into multiple languages. What that really is like is Solomon dividing the baby. That would be like, okay, so when Solomon had to think, if he had said, okay, look, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to divide this baby into 4. No, that's not right. That's what they're butchering the liturgy, just like Solomon dividing the baby. No, it's unwise. Sorry, you're wrong, bishops, for doing that. And then you look at it and say, well, why is that? How did they make this error? And I'll tell you where it's coming from. And that is that deep down, many of these bishops, either because they're not Americans to begin with, they don't love this country, or if they are Americans, they're panderers and they're self-loathers, which you can see that in many different areas of life. But no, that's so they may and they need to stop lying. They have all these reasons that they're lies. They say, oh, people don't speak language, but they do. They do. I went to a Holy Thursday night mass a couple of years ago. I can't go back to that parish for Holy Thursday anymore because the misguided pastor divided it up into 4 or 5 languages. I mean, he had stuff being said in like this obscure Indonesian dialect that I can guarantee you the only person that understood it was the one who was saying it. And I mean, it was such an obvious. That's really where I drew the line. I said, look, now you've made this unintelligible to the majority of people. The devil had to be laughing. It's exactly his goal. Because if they just had done everything in English, there might have been, I don't know if there would have been anyone who didn't understand it. I don't know if there would, actually. Because I guarantee you, when they go to the store and the clerk says $3, they understand what he says. And they pull out $3, yeah. It's like, there's very, very few people. And then for the few that really couldn't, there's some other means. Like they have, I'm not guess like at the masses where they have the signer signing. Yeah, there's an example of it. You can accomplish it in other ways other than cutting up the baby. Okay, so there's another error, and I think one of the problems is that. And all the implementation of things that they've done, and like this idea that I had mentioned about in the uniformity of going to communion, it's like and dumbing things down to the least common denominator. It's like, okay, Catholic bishops, by your fruits we will know you. So what are the fruits of what you've done over the past 50 years? Do we have more vocations? Is the church really thriving in this country? I see persecutions, laws against people with following their conscience in matters of issues of life being forced to cooperate in prescription of abortion pills, birth control, things like that, and silence on the part of the bishops. You know, where's the vocations? Oh, well, we're getting them from Africa and wherever else. Yeah, well, see, now you're reaping what you sowed. So you get people in here who essentially, they don't neither understand the country and they don't love it. They don't have the virtue of patriotism. That's a virtue. So what do you expect you're going to get? You know, so no, it's not something to celebrate. That's not a uniformity to celebrate.